Good morning, everyone. Another episode of Unheralded Heroes, Equal Start. Today I've got the established Dr. Brenda Hayagana. So Hayanga, is it? Sorry, did I
It's
put it?
Hayanga.
Yeah. Um,
Yes.
she's one of our academics down at the Enough Said Collective. She does some great work in research, trying to decolonize and provide spaces for more people from our background and community, especially African Caribbean, to make sure we have representation and that we know that we're trying to make a toolkit, isn't it? A toolkit that we're trying to
That's
give
it.
to institutions so they see community research and participatory research as the same
Mhm.
value as academics. And today I just
Yeah.
want to ask her experiences, her journey, and
Thank
see
you.
how we can progress in the future, where we can go push the frontiers to places that we haven't done in the past.
Thank you. Thank you for
Um,
inviting me, Sean. I'm really pleased to be here.
mm, that's okay. Could you tell us what made you well, begin in research, well, not begin, but the journey to it and getting your
Oh, my journey to
doctorate?
research.
Mhm.
Okay. I think I was always interested in research because if we break down research, it's all about understanding problems. You identify an issue, and something that doesn't sit right with you. It might be something interesting, it might be something that's linked to inequalities, and then you try and come up with solutions to fix them. So I was always, I did my undergrad and I did health studies and psychology. And, during the last year, they asked you to look at research issues. And I was interested in sexual health and the sexual health of people from minoritized ethnic groups. I then took a break, went to work, came back, and I thought actually I enjoyed doing that undergrad. And so I came back as a mature student to learn about research. But for you to learn about research, you need to do research methods, or it's important for you to do research methods to get that grounding so that you're creating research that is robust, research that is valid, that has got, the expertise within it, and something that's going to be able to stand, I guess, something that's going to be able to say, okay, this is backed up by evidence. So I went back to do like a postgraduate diploma in social science research methods because I thought I'm a person who's interested in very many things. One minute I could be interested in, the sexual health. In
Mhm.
another minute, I'm interested in how music impacts our well-being.
Mhm.
Also, we talked about spaces and environments. So I know that my research interests are quite varied. So I wanted to be able to get the tools to be able to do research. So, whatever question it is, because when it comes to research, we've got usually they're divided into, let me see, three different tribes, if you like. We've got your qualitative research, which talks about it's more about experiences, people's perspectives. This is where we carry out interviews, in-depth interviews, sometimes semi-structured. You're hearing people's voices, you're listening to what their experiences are. And so, the words are quite important and narratives are quite important when it comes to that. And then there is quantitative research, which is all about numbers and, large scale data sets and trying to get a big picture of what's happening. So then, you'll have your descriptive statistics, your trying to do analysis to establish and look for patterns
Mhm.
and look for these causal effects, if you like, associations, perhaps people who've got this particular characteristics, they're more likely to experience X, Y, and Z. So I wanted to learn both because when you're doing research and when you're interested in things, let's say for instance, let's take the example of music and how it impacts your well-being. You could do like a quantitative piece of research which looks at how many people listen to music and how does it impact their well-being, and you gather the numbers. But then you can also speak to people with the qualitative aspects and see how it actually impacts them. Tell me about a time when or what piece of music you use when you're feeling sad to uplift you. So you can ask them these questions and you can talk about them. So the main thing that I wanted to do was to understand the method so that whatever question pops up, I'm able to actually address it and I can answer that. And so I took this particular course that gave me that grounding in both quantitative, qualitative, as well as these mixed methods, which some research projects require you to combine both because you might have different questions to answer. Or sometimes you might find that the quantitative output doesn't really answer because then it's giving you a big picture, and now you want to find out the mechanisms underlying these statistics, and so you can
Definitely.
go out and find like ask questions, and then it will just help you to comprehensively understand the phenomena that you're exploring. So after doing this course, and during the course, actually, you were asked to choose a particular topic to apply this research skills in, because it's one thing learning about the methods, but it's another thing to actually apply it and use it, because then you
Yes.
can do it theoretically, but if you have something to focus it on and to look into it, then it will crystallize the knowledge and it will allow you to better understand. So I chose aging because we're all aging.
Of course.
Everyone's, every
Universal,
single
universal
second.
truth. That's one thing
E-
that's universal. Mm.
Exactly. And I thought, especially aging and aging for migrants, aging for people who are living in places where they weren't born necessarily. And I was quite interested in how the aging process, what it looks like for them. And in reading this particular literature, I found out that there's inequalities in aging when it comes to minoritized ethnic people. And that got me thinking, because then I was just looking at aging just broadly, like,
Okay.
everyone is aging. But there are people who have got like this accelerated aging, and in research, they've got this weathering hypothesis, which means that, you're going to have your body is going to go through certain changes depending on the stresses of your life, right? So if you've
Mm.
got a lot of external stresses, then you might have your aging is accelerated. So there's a whole hypothesis on there, the weathering hypothesis, by Geronimus and colleagues, that they spoke of this. And minoritized ethnic people were tended to have poorer outcomes in later life when it comes to aging. And so they're at risk of late life poverty. If we
Mm.
take a life course perspective, maybe the types of jobs that they've had means that
Definitely.
they're not accruing pensions. And so in later life, they might not be able to have the pension that they require.
Mm.
Or
Mm.
even the thing that got me really, really interested was like they retire early. And so maybe due to the types of jobs again that they have, they'll get
Burnout.
injured and they're exactly, and then they're unable to continue work, and so they retire early. And if we look at the policies, and this time it was around 2015 or so, and they had just abolished the retirement age and the default retirement age.
Mm.
And so for me, I was like wondering, oh my goodness, if people are retiring early, maybe you're retiring in your 40s or 50s, and the retirement age has been abolished, and it's not guaranteed that you're going to retire at a certain time. And people could be working for much longer, all the way into their 70s or so. Then what
Exactly.
happens in that case?
Exactly.
So that was something that I was quite interested in. I was lucky enough to, after finishing that course, to apply for funding. I was inspired actually. We did an internship at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, and I got to see other people who were doing research. And some people were doing research, international research. Like there was someone who was looking at a population in Tanzania and the hunter-gatherers, and how I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was in Tanzania, and it was they'd gone out to do field work, ethnographic studies, and they'd come back and they were telling us about their projects. They're showing us pictures, and I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh my goodness, I feel like I can actually do this. And you're speaking to them, and I don't know maybe what I thought about what PhDs were, but I was quite inspired there. But, people were looking at, I think there was another person who was looking at breastfeeding and mothers and the impact. So
Yeah,
they're looking
that's
at
a serious thing.
everyday.
It's a serious topic.
Yeah, they're looking at, what someone would just consider like everyday problems or everyday activities, but, what the issues are and who gets to do these everyday activities well, and people who might not be able to even have that opportunity to have a normal life. And so I was really inspired, and I thought, oh, you know what, I feel as though I can do something and contribute. So I applied for some funding from the ESRC as the Economic and Social Research Council, and got a studentship to do my PhD, and I focused that on
That's serious.
aging. Yeah, and
Was the application process difficult, or was there a lot of like kind of categories or parts to it that you had to fill out? To,
the application was more of you have your idea. So, this idea had been brewing throughout the whole course that I'd been doing with the research methods. And so, learning the literature and finding out what's been done. And that's quite important when it comes to research. you don't want to repeat research that has already been done, right? So if like you were looking at aging of, minoritized ethnic people, let's try and see what has been done, what gaps still exist, what's being done well, or even if something has been done, perhaps you can come in and use a different method to be able to look at it from a different angle that will give you new insights into it.
Okay.
So when applying for the funding that I applied for from the ESRC was you have your proposal and you will write up what the problem is, what's been done before, how your particular problem, how you're going to fix your problem, or the outcomes, the impact of the project that you're going to do, what you're going to need to be able to do it, how long it's going to take, what methods you're going to be using, who's going to be supervising you, because then you'll have your supervisors, you select supervisors, and these supervisors should be should be able to be in fields that can inform your own work, right? So, I
Okay.
wouldn't want to have like a supervisor from geography. Okay, maybe actually
Yeah,
it's quite
definitely.
interdisciplinary, right? So then, and then with support from these mentors and these supervisors, you build your research and you're able to craft together something, and you submit it for review to the council. And it's a competitive process because it's not just you who's applying. There's several people who are applying. And long story short,
Exactly.
I was really shocked that I actually got it, and
You
I was
shocked
really pleased.
with your academic background and what you've done? A
But this
surprise?
was at the beginning. This was at the very, very beginning. We're
Okay.
talking about, the infancy of it all. Like I was pleased, but again, I was also scared. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna do it, and I don't know I didn't know that I could. Yeah, I didn't. I hadn't planned to do it. I feel as though just the way my interests led me into one thing into another. Like, oh, I want to learn about research methods, and then
You're
again, I
destined.
picked a
You're destined
topic.
then.
Yeah, then I get inspired by other people. Then I also felt that if I didn't make use of the course, like sometimes you finish a course and you're like, okay, what am I going to do with it? And I felt like I needed to, take it further. And I had been working at the same time as doing this part-time and doing the research part-time, but working. So I wanted to make sure that it bears fruit. So
Was the
doing
employment in the same category that you were studying in?
Oh no, I was working in a company that looked at credit card machines and were providing tech support. And
Okay,
so it
okay.
was completely different. So I,
Different.
I had
Okay.
my tech support hat, customer service skills, good skills actually, and good
Yeah, of course.
problem
When you're
solving.
dealing with people interviewing.
Exactly, and problem solving skills, and also the work ethic, because then I was very much used to working 9 till 6:30. So, and I had been working already. So when I started my PhD, I just carried on working 9 to 6:30, and that
Good to
was
hear.
quite helpful to accelerate to
Mhm.
accelerate. So yeah, so
How
that's
did you
how I
find
started
such a job
off.
like that? Because I never thought there was jobs for that kind of work for like people. That's
Yeah.
seriously every day I can discover sectors that said, is that even a sector? Is that even a job sector? How much people does that employ? You see?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, there is.
Was you
And
looking for it or did you stumble across it?
this job for the tech support and helping people. Oh no, that
Yes.
was just could I say I stumbled upon it? No, there were lots of these types of companies coming through. Like, if you look at the customer services world in these things, so you can offer support to different people, different areas. So this was just a business. It was a business that was providing support for small to medium businesses who want to take payment solutions. So if you've got like you want to take from your customers card payments, you need to have that machine installed, and then
Okay.
that the company would look after the equipment, but also make sure that the money is transferred from the customer to
Okay,
your
that's kind
bank
of like sum
account.
up then. Sum up and block. Square block.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So
Yeah.
things like that.
Okay, fair enough.
So yeah, it was quite interesting. And then I enjoyed it because then it was very, you're solving problems. It doesn't look the same. One minute you could be, sorting out funds. Another minute the machine's broken. Another minute, maybe money's, there's delays. So there was always very, very different things to be looking at. Another minute, maybe someone wants to sign up. Someone is finishing their business, what's required for them to wrap up. and return equipment. So it was very, 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 very fast paced, very interesting to me. But I felt as though I could do this, but I just wanted more, and I wanted to be able to go back to the research aspect.
Of course.
And yeah, I felt like yes, I could do it, but I think I just wanted to use the other skill sets of academia, and yeah, so I went back.
You see, establishing research, was there much people like us within that sector, that field?
When I first started, and there was actually, let me see, in the class, the thing that really encouraged me a lot was I went in as like a mature student, but then there were people in their 50s and 60s who were older than me who were actually
Okay.
doing their courses as well. And
Okay.
so these were like maybe like teachers or social workers, and they
Okay.
wanted to add an element to it. So that particular course was full of mature students, and I was considering myself like mature, but they were much older than me, and it was beautiful to see that at any age you can still come back and learn these things. And then when I got the funding to do the PhD, we had like when they gather us all together
Mm.
and you're in a hall, there weren't very many black people, I could say. Maybe I can say in that cohort of 60 students, when we're in that particular hall, I could count maybe three.
To be fair, in terms of the population, that sounds
Yeah.
about right. Uh,
Yeah.
as a woman,
I was the only woman, and then the other
only
two
woman.
were guys. Yeah.
Okay.
And the one guy was a younger guy, and then the other guy was a mature. He was like in his 60s as well. So, and wanting to work on a project, I think in London, and looking at gentrification from what I can remember. So, and then there's another one who was focused on health. I can't remember precisely, but it was just so varied in people's interests. And I think the thing that I would say is that if there is like something that's nagging you, that you feel as though there is a problem, then you can approach it in a scientific manner and come and do research, because then that's what it's all about. It's about identifying problems and solutions and then coming to fix it. And there's no limit on who can, fix problems and who can identify
Yeah,
that.
definitely,
And
definitely,
yeah,
definitely. I think once you become a student, I recognize that when I went to university, I said
mm,
I have to be a student for life because I remember my lecturer saying, "Sean, you don't
mm,
disagree now, but in 10 years you'll probably have to update. Otherwise, you'll be seen as
yeah,
a dinosaur relic." So I said, "What? At
yes,
26?" He
yeah,
said, "Yeah." So
yeah.
no, I
And
realized
see
I said
now,
without until if they're going to keep up with your skills and
yes,
establish practice, best
yeah,
practice, new, you always got to have, every 3 to 5 years.
you'll
You've got
have
to
to
be
come
like kind of
through.
refreshing or progressing, otherwise you stagnate and you
Yes,
in a time warp. So it's only at that age that it finally dawned on me when I was 26. I said, "Yeah, that's serious." All that time I thought, "Yeah, as soon as you finish, you do your GCSEs, A levels degree, that's it. You get a nice
yeah.
paid job that
And
you
you're
can have,
done.
to progress in
No.
life, get your house, get married, have children." I realized it's just not enough, especially in this modern era. And it's so competitive, and more people are interested, more
Oh
sectors.
yeah. And
Yeah,
also if just with the aging research that I did, they were looking, if you look at the way that aging was looked at, maybe people didn't live very long for people didn't live that long. Life expectancy was shorter, and so maybe life was boxed into like, childhood and then midlife and then later life. And
mm.
then, that midlife aspect was maybe long enough, but the later life wasn't
Yeah,
necessarily done
exactly.
so.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then if you look at the types of jobs that were available back then, these were jobs for life. You would get one career, but now there's been the shift to convenience. These jobs whereby it's trying
Mm.
to feed into this 24-hour economy,
Mm-hmm.
0-hour contracts.
Facts.
You
Yeah.
need to be, you're not going to stay, you're not going to have that one career. You'll have to be able
Yeah,
to
yeah,
be
transferable
flexible
skills. Have to work
and
other
change.
things. Yeah, to be fair though, I've noticed that's contributed to less life outcomes in terms of owning assets, especially for our community, and the
Yeah.
financial stability, and that's increased the mental stress, and that's why you have all this thing now about mental well-being to take
Yes.
care of yourself. Obviously, they've had to increase the welfare state. I've never seen how many, when I was young, so many people working full time still having to get some form of universal credit because of their
Yes.
outgoings. It's just inflated asset prices and the cost of living. So the
Mm.
people work more. They maybe have a partner that works as well, not
And you're
more
still,
more often, and still they can't get to that say the level of say the baby boomers. which
Mm.
even when I done sociology at A level, that I discovered a few
Wow.
years ago, and it's just got worse and worse. And
Yeah.
now, from when I was researching it, I'm kind of like a victim of that. And now myself, I said, how can you come to this conclusion?
Mm.
But it's you're right. The society changes and
Yeah.
the
Society
speed
does
of it.
change.
Mm,
Exactly. And then also, and I guess, in researching aging, you get to research the life course, how people were expected to move out and, go and buy your own house or have your own households. And there's a lot of people now who can't even afford to move out of their parents' homes
mm,
and until maybe they save up and get that mortgage. So you are getting that extended families living together. And, some people, for them, it's a value. For some people, it might
it's
cause
not.
strain.
Yeah, it's depends how
Yeah.
you get along with your family members. That's the thing.
Yeah.
You see, when you was there as well, was there much Asian and white women within the research sector? Well, when you
There
applied for your
was.
PhD, there were.
They
Okay.
was. And remember that it was international, so it's
Okay.
not
So you're getting
necessarily just we're not looking at UK. So
yeah.
a lot of people from Southeast Asia or East Asia.
Okay.
We had
Oh, so the
people from
Philippines,
Europe,
Japan, places like that, Cambodia,
South
Vietnam.
Korea, China.
Okay, China. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. As well as, from Europe, we had people from like in my particular cohort, and it was quite nice because then you've got like this international group of people, and some people are from Europe, some people are from like I suppose there were people from France, people from Poland, within our particular cohort. So you get to learn more and you get to experience it in a different way. So I wouldn't necessarily, and also obviously there was white British people within the cluster as well, and that was the learning that we got from it was invaluable because and the team as well. It was very collegiate. So we usually used to have these nights out whereby we are, one night we go and the Chinese students were gonna make us like a hot pot type thing. So we all go there and we gather. Then
Experience each
next,
other's
the
culture.
Greek students, exactly, the Greek
Mm.
students would be like, oh, they know this joint, let's come over. Next, we've gone to like this Polish restaurant. I
Mm.
was born in Kenya, so I got my family to create, and they came over to mine, and we had like this Kenyan food, so they experienced that they fully experienced that. So it was quite nice to be able to get to know this. So that
And
was yeah,
it's like intersectionalism, isn't it? Where
yeah,
you're reaching out and you're learning things about other cultures, and you build relationships that you wouldn't typically do in day-to-day life once you're
yes,
around, going to work and balancing your bills and responsibilities because you're kind
yes,
of like in a microcosm, and you
exactly,
don't get
and
to
it,
interact with people like that on a personal nature or more
mm,
extensive nature and to learn about them.
mm. True. And that's also from that social aspect, but also from depending on what topics people are researching. So, I was based at the IOE, the Institute of Education at the time, and there's a lot of people maybe who are looking at educational attainment and differences, inequities in that. And, I'm here, I'm looking at the aging population, aging minoritized people, and I was focusing on social isolation and loneliness actually amongst minoritized people who are living in the UK. And so when we do these seminars, you get to hear what people are doing, and other people get to hear what you're working on as well, and they'll get to understand population. So it's just like all round learning. You're not necessarily just going there to focus on your own research. You can hear things, methods. Sometimes when it comes to, oh, you can ask the colleagues, I'm working on this. What do you think about that? I can remember there was a colleague of mine who was working like on trust and AI, and sometimes just thinking out loud, you'd say, "Oh, why don't you, I see it in this way," and they'd be like, "Huh, okay." So very, very, it's learning on the go every day in a gentle way, and it's something that is, I could say, is not forced upon you because, and this wasn't like school. You have to go. I'm the one who's taken myself back, and it's
Definitely.
quite different when you're doing it in your terms, I guess.
That's very interesting.
Hmm.
You see, going forward, you're going to publish journals, aren't you?
I do, yes, I do have papers actually that I've published, several papers.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yes.
You remember, there's a whole career with publishing. You see, you could get to do these international speeches, maybe their TED talk,
Oh, maybe
and
a
then
TED Talk
and
would
to
be good.
promote your publications. Yeah, I'll
That's
have to come to
true.
you for some advice about that because I actually published my dissertation when I left university.
Oh, that's good. That's
Yeah,
really, really good. And
so
so
but
you're The
Sorry?
information's out there. And
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah, yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
idea
yeah.
is,
A
yes.
lap publishing, a publisher from Germany. I couldn't believe it. It's they basically. I think because the subject matter, because it's niche, they were looking
Mm,
at to fulfill probably some kind of criteria. They want to have
yes.
more black, you kind of people that have written dissertations in topics about
Mm.
our community because there was
Ah,
much of it that they had within their I could say portfolio, their library. So
mm,
yeah, I think that's why they even my wife they asked her to for about her dissertation as well to publish
nice.
it. So I was shocked because I said, huh? I've been trying to think because when I wrote my first book, I had to self-publish because I couldn't get anyone to take it up. It's
All
like what we've
right.
done before. So I've always kind of
Mm,
been interested in that world, and obviously because I've done journalism in terms of
yeah.
how people get messages across and connect with legacy media to get news
Mm,
that you won't hear about every day in mainstream press out there.
yes.
And there's a lot
Yeah.
of barriers, gatekeepers, and obstacles you have to jump over. So
To get that.
I hope you think maybe with all your publishing, you can give me some advice and benefit from your
Okay,
experience.
for sure, for sure. I
Yeah,
will learn. At the moment, I haven't published any books, but I've published in journal publications,
yeah, academic ones.
whereby, and then I've also published in someone else's book. So like a chapter in a book where they will have, like there's one on men and welfare. And I was speaking about the social participation and social support practices of older racialized men
Hmm.
and how they want to be seen. And so that was part of like my PhD. So some ever so often you get people who will, put a call out and say this is the idea for the book that they want to put together. They'll be the editors. They're looking for book contributions from authors. So yes, I've had a few of those. Eventually, I'll get to a point whereby I publish my own book, maybe publish from my PhD thesis. Yes, but I do I know it's like a big undertaking, and but people can do it. There's several people who will be able to guide me, and people who, yeah, just use that experience. I haven't done it as of yet, but trust, and with the type of work that I do, sometimes that could be put aside, and you might actually do it before me, and I could come and learn, and it'd be like, oh yeah, don't use this publisher instead.
You see,
So,
can you give any titles of your academic journals? Because for the benefit of the audience, so they could look you up and
oh
do
yeah, I
research.
can.
We
I
need
can
more of
even
that
send you
because
like a link.
yeah,
Right.
we
So
should.
my very first paper was on the friendship networks of older people from minoritized ethnic groups. So that particular paper was really I was so passionate about it because when I started this issue about aging and research and loneliness, the focus is usually on family, and they tend to focus on the family is going to be the support. They might be ignored because then it will just be a case that for minoritized ethnic people, family, they rely on family a lot. So they can tend to be ignored by the formal services. So I wanted to actually look at friendships because then those are quite important. And in fact, the people that I spoke to, they were indicating that for some of them, relationships with family might be very fractious in some
Yeah,
cases. So they
exactly.
do
Yeah,
have,
that's
yeah.
increasing more and more. That's
Yeah,
increasing
and
more and
so
more.
what about friendships? And so we were looking at how the friendship networks in terms of contact, how close they live. And the key finding for that particular paper, first of all, sorry, I used data from Understanding Society. This is a large-scale longitudinal data that's available to researchers. It's been running since 2009. It looks
Okay.
at, social aspects as well as social and economic aspects. So, questions of how many friends do you have? How many close friends do you have? So that was a good example of using the quantitative aspects, how
Yeah, for
far do they
patterns,
live?
like you said, establishing patterns and trends. Because as a society,
Exactly.
that's what we need to make sure that the solutions fit a large catch of people to make it worthwhile.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And so, I was now focusing on, although that data set, it's good for looking at like, the life course, but it's not necessarily focused on like aging, on older people. So by the time you reduce your sample to, you just want to look at people who are age 65 and above, it becomes smaller. And the number of
Mhm.
people from minoritized ethnic groups are so small that you can't break them down into the 18 ethnic categories that are
Ways,
usually
of
used or
course.
so. So then one thing that I can say with that paper is that I had to group people into, black, and I know there's diversity within the black
Of
group.
course,
Then I had
definitely.
to, group them into Asian, and I know there's diversity within them, and white. I know there's diversity within all these different categories as well. But I was forced to do that to just look at the bigger patterns.
Mm-hmm.
So I found
You have to,
out
because
that,
otherwise they say it's anecdotal and is this the data set's
yeah,
not big enough. That's what
ex
governments and governmental departments always say. Said, "Oh, what's the point of
yeah,
serving this because they're so small, they're such a minority, it'd be a waste of
yeah,
resources."
exactly.
I've seen that.
So
I've seen that.
in this case, the I found that the people from minoritized ethnic groups were less likely to say that they had fewer close friends, and then these friends were more geographically dispersed, so they didn't necessarily live very close
Oh,
to
yeah.
them.
So
So
that's what breaks
yeah,
communities. Mm.
yeah, so I couldn't leave it at that. So I published those particular findings, but I indicated that more research is needed and we need to do qualitative work to find out maybe this person who's saying they have two close friends, they're fine with these two friends, and these friends are depending on even what friendship means. Some people can consider family members as friends. So I made the case that I needed to do qualitative work to understand the social network patterns. And so I was able to carry out interviews to speak to them, for people to tell me about what they do, who their friends are, what they do for fun, do they consider themselves, how they see themselves as well. So I just asked them, just tell me about yourself. And these were these narrative interviews. So anyway, the first paper was that one on the friendship networks. And then I've since then published other things on the project that I'm working on now is on multiple long-term conditions. So trying
Okay.
to assess the prevalence of multiple long-term conditions. So I looked at, this was a systematic review. So I just looked at existing information telling us about what the data tells us. Are people from minority ethnic groups disadvantaged or not? And then what about the healthcare services? Are there inequalities in healthcare services? So there's another paper on that. There's a host of papers on multiple long-term conditions because that's been a focus of my research now. And there is also book chapters on theorizing and, what are the mechanisms? How do we understand what are the causes of multiple conditions and the causes of these inequalities? We
Mm.
can't just focus on individuals themselves.
Yeah, of
And
course.
that's for me, yeah, for me, it's quite a big thing to look at the wider aspects and look at what's happening in society, in schools, at work, the types of jobs, and then neighborhoods, looking at how areas are funded, clinics and deprived clinics, and how then that then influences you as an individual,
Mhm.
and the types of interventions that we would need.
You see, in terms of, remember what I've said about the urban planning? Because I know when I was growing
Yes.
up, they said these kind of social sciences, where a lot of, people in the hard sciences would say, "Oh, look, I don't see any outcomes of that." Social science is basically, wishy-washy, and
Mm,
you can't get any reasonable, secure data over these things because they're subjective. But I said, then why do governments use them so much? Why do we have social policy? So, do you think
yeah.
that is the kind of findings you have? Government department will one day take up and say, "Oh, this is what we got to plan for to
Mm,
prevent these from happening." People being lonely and struggling
mm.
economically, and how do we improve those outcomes? Do
I
you have
think
like a pipeline or a conduit where you can meet these people and say, look, this is my research, this is what it proves, and it needs to be
mm.
implemented so the people will actually benefit from it?
So, I wouldn't say that, oh, this is the pipeline that you'll have to go to. You have to be able to build some of these relationships and maybe partner up with people who already work in these areas to
Mhm.
be able to present your work. So, in the past, I've done my research and I've tried to disseminate widely to go and present it, not just at conferences, but you would meet people like, let's say, from the NHS England, and if they've got like their seminars, try and present there, and someone can say, oh, I'll introduce you. Let's you need to speak to this particular person. Right now, the project that I'm working on is on ethnic inequalities in multiple long-term conditions. And because and I know that I've been a researcher, and my work is to analyze this and also to disseminate through conferences, through even animations, and try to get the message out. But then trying to get it to the policymakers might just be a bit harder. So, but
Okay.
if I work with organizations like the Race Equality Foundation,
So,
and just to
yes.
see as to how things are done and how policies change. So I've still got some learning to do when it comes to
Yeah,
that.
so do I. So
But
do I. Mm. And I
yeah,
used to work
but
in the
at
racial
least.
commission of racial equality when I was a teenager. work
Oh,
experience. Yeah.
interesting. Oh, that's so cool. That's
Yeah.
really, really good. So this is, I think, just learning from those people who have been able to, shift the dial and see as to what they're doing and get some assistance. I don't, people out there are very, very helpful. I know researchers are quite busy and, these high-flying academics, professors, etc., they've got like a lot on their plate, but they are those who would take time to mentor the people who are coming through and show us the ropes, and also these organizations who can have some more influence, if you like.
Okay then. With that,
Yeah.
that's a wrap. And thanks for coming today, Doctor
Right.
Hayanga. And
Okay.
hopefully we'll talk soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Where there's
Uh,
people, there is power.
there
Justice
is.
in our time.
Thank you.